Hi, I am Chen Jia, and I'm currently an 11th grade student at the Webb Schools in California. I participated in the game theory program, and my research topic is based on a movie from 2008 and is a scenario that is presented in the movie. So here you can see a
Here's
brief
my car.
clip.
Bruce, this is Harvey Dent.
Rachel's told me everything about you.
I certainly hope not.
Yeah, so you get the idea.
So,
And the scenario basically constitutes of two ferries who are filled with citizens, and the Joker says that if one of you blows up the other, so each of them have a detonator that blows up the opposite ferry, and if one ferry blows up the other, or let's say both, then the Joker will not do anything. But in the case that both sides decide to not blow up the other opposite ferry, then the Joker will come in and blow up both the ferries. So that wouldn't be a desirable result. But in my game, I made some modifications, which is first of all, there are assumed to be two players on each ferry, so that there are two decisions being made, and the rules of the game is that if one of the two people decide to not blow up the opposite ferry, then the opposite ferry will not be blown up. And same goes for if both players choose not to blow up the other ferry, obviously it will not blow up. But it only works when both players have consent to blow up the opposite ferry. So that's a rule of the game. And another modification made is that the Joker is to be a character that does not certainly will blow up both ferries if he is involved. So this makes the game evasion game instead of a simple coordination, a simple prisoner's dilemma game. And so here is the draft that I have of my paper. You can see introduction. And so for the literature review, I investigated some previous papers which involve concepts mentioned in mine. For example, the first paper provided a payoff matrix that is based on the Hunger Games, and also the sort of aspects of social experiment and of the moral nature of my game theory scenario can also be seen in this book, Game Theory for the Social Sciences, where a connection between game theory and sort of opinions and politics is given by this book. And so this is the payoff matrix that I created to model the situation. You can see that there are it's a 4x4 matrix with 4 scenarios for each ferry. And we find that the equilibrium can be classified into 3 types. The first is that everyone says yes, which is sort of morally ambiguous, I would say, but it does theoretically it is an equilibrium. And the other is polar opposites or conditional or just universal disagreement with Joker involvement. And so you can see that in every scenario, the only way to achieve an equilibria is if the two players on each ferry make an unanimous decision. So that's an interesting outcome that I formulated from my research. Here's the conclusion and references. And so in my research journey, it's sort of when I formulated this topic, I had two ideas initially. This idea I actually found from a textbook problem, which you can see I also have a model of it here. It's much simpler in a sense because it's 2x2 matrices, but it did introduce an idea I used of the Joker being uncertain. There is a probability that the Joker will say yes to blowing up both ferries, and there's a probability that he'll say no. So that's a very important condition I implemented in my research that is from a previously existing textbook problem. And so my instructor, Dr. Foley, he provided a lot of potential scenarios we could use, but there was also a lot of this discussion about during class and after class about what sort of scenarios we wanted. And I proposed two. One of them is this, and the other is a sort of scenario involving recursion, but eventually I think we discussed, and then there were a lot of additional materials that I had to go through if I were to go with that approach. So this is what I ended up following. And so challenges I faced with the research, it's mainly sort of because there already is this textbook problem, but coming up with my extension and like extensions that are both complex enough and also significant enough that it the equilibrium and the result of the research is actually meaningful, and it can be connected to a lot of the other sciences, like in my case, social sciences. So I think coming up with that is a pretty difficult process. There had to be a lot of research and a lot of examination of other people's previous work that maybe has made similar choices in extending their games and making the rules sort of. And so my biggest takeaway from my research experience, I would say, is overall, first of all, the first 4 sessions where we learned about game theory. It is an entirely new concept to me. Actually, economics in general is to me. And so that would be the first major takeaway, is just understanding and learning so much of a topic within such a short period of time. And the second is, I think, just organizing a research project, time management, especially. I did struggle with that in my academic careers during 9th grade, but now I'm much better at it. And I think just having known that there are certain things you have to follow and certain work you have to do in order to have the entire thing unfold and result in this paper that explains my research and explains my proposition of this model and what results I gave and the significance it has. Just weaving all of these things together, I think, is a huge takeaway for me and will be very, very helpful in my future academic career, I believe. And so with these skills that I've learned, I definitely want to further my studies in game theory and mathematics, economics in general. And since this year I am taking a laboratory sort of research science class at my school, I hope to use it to do a good job in that class, basically. But also on top of that, to be able to go further. For example, like in my research labs, I now have the skills to do more, to instead of following the teacher given procedures, I might make an extension, or I might analyze issues in a more thorough way. So I think that's very important. And yeah, basically this is my completed project. and it's a very rewarding process. So thank you for watching.